across Texas, dense stands of undesirable weeds and brush reduce the productivity of grazing lands. These plants use valuable water, reduce grass production, and can result in soil erosion. One of the ways these plants can be controlled is through using selective herbicides. Selective herbicides control targeted weeds and brush, but they leave pasture and range grasses unharmed. The purpose of this program is to show how, with proper use, herbicides can be efficient and environmentally safe. They can be a cost-effective way to improve and maintain productivity. Let's talk first about brush control. Texas ranchers have fought brush for about as long as anyone remembers, in pastures, fence rows, and on rangelands. There are several good reasons to control brush: to increase the quantity of grass available for grazing, to make handling livestock easier, and to extend the useful life of fences. Brush management can also help conserve soil and water, improve wildlife habitat, and maintain the condition and value of the land. Before you make a significant investment in brush control, it's a good idea to plan the program thoroughly, from objectives through follow-up. Define exactly what you want to accomplish, make certain it's possible, and then put together a plan to get it done. Consider all the alternatives for controlling brush. Each of these methods has its own advantages and disadvantages. The best plan for brush control often includes a combination of methods. Let's look at how selective herbicides can fit into a brush management plan. One of the early decisions to make is whether the job calls for a broadcast method or individual plant treatment. Generally, if there are more than 150 to 200 plants per acre, broadcast treatment is likely to be the most economical. Lighter infestations may be controlled more economically with some type of individual plant treatment. The nature of the site will also affect your choice of methods. Avoid spraying too close to water or to nearby sensitive crops. It's important to know where herbicides fit, to follow recommended rates and procedures, and to use common sense to get the best results. If you have questions about using herbicides, ask your county extension agent or other qualified sources. Now, let's discuss how these herbicides work and how you can use them most effectively. There are three primary ways herbicides can be applied to a plant. They can be applied to the foliage, to the soil, or to the plant's lower trunk. These treatments are referred to as foliar, soil applied, and basal. We'll spend some time explaining each method. Many brush species are susceptible to some type of foliar herbicide. The leaves take in the herbicide and move it through the plant. With foliar herbicides, the more foliage you cover, the better control you'll get. To kill the plant, it first has to absorb enough herbicide, and second, it must move the chemical to the roots. For this to happen, the plant must have enough foliage to catch and absorb the herbicide. Anything that reduces the amount of leaf surface will reduce the amount of control. And the plant must be in a receptive stage of growth. It's usually best to apply foliar herbicides when the plant has fully expanded leaves and when growing conditions are favorable. The plant should not be stressed by a lack of moisture. Foliar herbicides can be applied several different ways. They can be broadcast by airplane or helicopter, or with a ground broadcast sprayer. For treating individual plants, foliar herbicides can be applied with a small manual sprayer or with a power sprayer. A cattle sprayer is often used for this. When you treat individual plants, it's especially important to cover all the foliage with the herbicide. Without good coverage, the plant may survive. You may get good coverage most easily using a handgun sprayer. On some species, foliar herbicides can be used effectively with a carpeted roller. This uses a carpet-covered cylinder to wipe a herbicide solution directly on the plant. It's a very effective method for treating light infestations or regrowth. Another mechanized applicator for foliar herbicides is the brush robot. This method allows you to individually treat small brush plants over a large area. The machine is self-activating. Any brush large enough to trip the arm gets a dose of herbicide solution. Both of these devices are economical to use, but they do require an investment in equipment. The second category we mentioned is soil-applied herbicides. These herbicides come in two different forms, pellets and liquids. Both are applied directly to the soil, where rainfall moves them into the root zone. The roots take in the herbicide with moisture, eventually killing the plant. The pellets may be broadcast by air or ground equipment. You can also apply them with a backpack blower or by hand. The liquid herbicides are applied to the soil with a spot delivery gun that measures the exact individual dose. Soil-applied herbicides are handy maintenance tools. The liquids are the most effective herbicides available to control cedars and junipers. But soil-applied herbicides have their limitations too. Some chemicals can be tied up by clay and organic content in the soil, which prevents them from working. If desirable plants are near the target plants, the roots of both can pick up the herbicide. This could kill the desirable plants. And watch out for situations where the herbicide could move from the target site with water runoff. Apply your treatments on the uphill side. The third method of applying herbicide is basal application. This is strictly an individual plant treatment, but done properly, basal application will give a high degree of root kill, and it can be done several different ways. With the old conventional basal method, a dilute mixture of herbicide and diesel is sprayed on the plant's lower trunk until it pools at the base. For some plants, thoroughly wetting the bark is enough. For others, the solution should penetrate the soil and cover the bud zone. For these plants, the application should be done in dry summer weather. The low-volume basal method uses diesel and 20 to 30% herbicide. You spray just enough to wet the bark. The extra herbicide should enter the bark and move to the roots. This generally works on plants with trunks that are less than 6 inches in diameter. This method works most times of the year. The streamline basal method uses a solution of about 25% herbicide, diesel, and a bark-penetrating agent. You spray the mix in a band 2 to 3 inches wide. This works best on stems less than 3 inches in diameter and when the plants are growing actively. With the last type of basal method, thin-line basal, you don't use any diesel. You spray a thin band of straight herbicide on new bark, circling the trunk. This works best on plants less than 6 inches in diameter and can be done almost any time of year. To summarize, the basal methods are excellent for individual plant treatment. Compared to conventional basal application, the low volume, streamline, and thin line take less labor, and they're more effective on small plants. For more information about basal treatments, visit your county extension office. They have a list of effective herbicides. Also, there's another video program that goes into more detail on these techniques. Regardless of the method, applying herbicides is not the final step in brush management, it's the first step. In most cases, brush will come back, either from seeds in the soil or from resprouts. Overgrazing, drought, or anything that reduces the grass cover will speed up this process. So, anytime you plan for brush control, it's a good idea to plan how you'll follow up. You'll want to harvest the increased grass production without overgrazing. A healthy turf discourages new brush seedlings. But you should expect brush to come back and plan to manage it. Most brush plants can sprout beneath the soil. If only the tops are killed, sprouts are usually back the second year after treatment. It's possible to get many stems from a single plant. This is usually the problem with the most persistent brush species. Individual plant treatments can be used to keep this reinfestation from taking over again quickly. Mechanical or chemical treatments can be used, or a combination of treatments may be needed. This may include prescribed burning. Even regular weed control can help hold down seedlings and regrowth. We'll say more about this in a minute. Generally speaking, after you've invested in a reclamation project, it's worth maintaining with less expensive methods. By controlling reinfestation this way, you can maintain and extend the benefits from your original control effort. Of course, brush is not the only pest on grazing lands. Let's look at the other problem limiting pasture production, annual and perennial weeds. There are several good reasons to control weeds. Research shows that for every pound of weeds killed, another pound of grass will be produced. If you're in an area where poisonous plants are a problem, weed control may reduce livestock losses. And weeds use available water, reducing grass production. This can increase soil erosion. But weeds can be controlled. When herbicides are applied properly at the right time, 85 to 90% control is possible. It's a good idea to begin scouting pastures for weeds in January and February and continue through spring. Fall, winter, and spring moisture will encourage weed seedlings. If pastures have been overgrazed or stressed by drought, weed problems are even more likely. When you start scouting, weed seedlings may look small, but they can grow into a major problem. One rule of thumb used by the Extension Service says, if you see 8 annual weeds per square yard, they'll reduce grass production enough to justify spraying. Scouting helps you catch problems early. The most economical and effective time to spray annual weeds is when they're 2 to 4 inches tall and growing actively. Spraying later may be less effective, and it will usually be more expensive. But there may be situations when you want to delay spraying. Annual weed spraying can also suppress small brush, and it plays a role in a maintenance program following brush control. Weed control with herbicides is usually less expensive than brush control, and it also gives a quicker return on your investment. If you want to affect brush at the same time you spray weeds, you'll have to spray later and with heavier rates of herbicide. Remember, brush must have leaves to absorb a foliar herbicide. If you have perennial weeds, the best time to spray will vary with the species, so ask your county extension agent for local recommendations. After weed control, grazing management also is important. To make the most of your investment, let the grass cover grow and fill in any bare spots. That way, there's less opportunity for weed seedlings to germinate and grow, and your benefits may last more than 1 year. For more information on weed and brush control, contact your county extension office. They can provide you with current information on recommended management practices, herbicides, and application rates. Like any investment, weed and brush control is no sure thing. But if it's planned properly, done correctly, and if grazing is well managed, chances are that your forage will improve.